In this tutorial, we are going to cover the overview for pages. So by default, when you log in, you will be logging in to your pages, or you will appear on your pages page. And pages are your top level pages related to your website, so your main content pages. So for the purposes of this video, we're going to focus on the About page. Currently, it is empty. It is called the About page. Note you can change the name and update that. So notice this will change now to a unicorn, and the title of the page will change to unicorn. But notice the URL has not changed. It's still related to About. So note, if you ever change your name of the page, which you're not going to do frequently, but if you do, you must come over to the permalink and you must change that to unicorn as well. So then update that. So now your unicorn page will have the unicorn permalink, or what they call slug. So if I go to this page, it's still on the About page. If I refresh it, it will take me to an error page because this page no longer exists. It's no longer About page. The URL does not exist. If I change this to unicorn, we will go to the unicorn page. So for the sake of argument, I'm going to change that back. The take home from that is, please, if you change the page, change the permalink as well. Okay, so that's that. Now the overview of pages. Down here, you will probably see a page where this is open. I tend to close these by default, which you can just toggle this arrow here. This is to do with your SEO and smart crawl. I am not going to cover that in this video. That will be under smart crawl and SEO video at a later point. So for the moment, I'm going to just hide this out of the way. We have a menu system up here. We have a menu system here, and we also have a menu system here. So I'm going to focus on this menu system here. Full screen, notice this left toolbar here will disappear. And to get back to the page, you just click that black button. I don't like this, but again, it's down to preferences, what you prefer. Spotlight is, I'm just going to add 4 of these blocks. I will cover blocks in detail in another video. So for the moment, just ignore this particular section. But here you can see that the content has 4 blocks. You can see that the blue of the heading indicates each block. Notice when I put it in spotlight mode, all of the blocks kind of become opaque, except the one that I'm working in. So if I want to work at the top block, click on it, it takes focus, it gets full color, the rest gets opaque. So that's what that spotlight means. It focuses you in on the particular section that you're working on. Toolbar is this secondary toolbar here. You can either have it permanently fixed here, or you can have it floating with the block that you are either working on. So at the moment it's fixed. If I click it off, notice the toolbar is now here. And if I click on this block, it will hover here. So these 3 options are totally down to preference, totally up to you. The rest of these preferences, please do not touch. You will not need them. And they're not relevant in any way going forward for you guys. So that's that menu system. Clicking on this just hides this right menu, gives you more freedom to see things. Again, most of the time you're going to want to keep this in. Lastly, on this menu, please note that this page and block are actually 2 very important menu systems, and they're not very obvious to differentiate that they're 2 independent blocks. Page is all the settings related to the actual page, what's happening. So the permalink of the page, the featured image of the page, the discussion of the page, which is to do with comments. That is irrelevant for pages. I will discuss comments in the blog video. For the moment, you're never going to need this for pages, so ignore it. Page attributes, again, you're not going to need that, so ignore that. Featured image, for this particular website, we are not using featured images, but there is a high chance that you will. And that essentially is the master image related to the page. It's usually at the top of the page, the first thing you see, and that will be the featured image. And typically you just click on it, add an image, set the featured image, update, and that becomes the featured image. Replace it, very simple. So there's a high chance you will have featured images for that, and that's where you change it here. Permalinks we've discussed. Revisions is a history of work and saves that you've done for the on the page. Template is related to if I create a template and it's specific to a page. So sometimes you'll often have a contact page or a contact template which is related to the contact page, because they're often very different to the rest of the pages. I will create a specific template and you will see it here. And usually I will call the template by name of what the page will be. So in this example, since we're on the About page, I will probably make an About template or a template for the About page. For the moment, this website only has a privacy template. So if I quickly pop over to the privacy page, which is here, you'll notice that it has a privacy template applied. Generally speaking, you will not need this setting. I would leave it alone. That's more my department in setting up on the website. Status and visibility, it's public, and you can choose to make it private, meaning it's private, that a normal person coming across your website will not see the page. This is only viewable by you giving that person the URL to that page, and then you can password protect that page. You're not going to use that very often, but it's there. It gives you the date, and then you can change who authored the page. But again, for pages, author is not important. So generally speaking, status and visibility is not overly important, and you won't need it very much. Lastly, your update button, your preview button. So mobile and tablet and desktop just gives you a different view. Not very helpful in this particular setting. So you're not going to need those. Preview in a new tab just opens the page that you're on on the front end, so you can see what's happening. And that's essentially what that does. And then switch to draft means that if I go back, I made a test page here, and I'm going to set that to a draft. So what that's done is that's now saved it as a draft, and it's taken it off as a live page. So this test page is now only visible in the backend. It only exists in the backend. And until I'm ready to launch this page live, I would click publish. But until you're ready to go live, just save it as a draft. I'm going to save it there as a draft, and you'll see that all pages with draft will have this draft tag here. And you'll also see there's a draft menu here that will display all your pages for drafts. So this is quite useful if you've got a number of pages that you're kind of thinking with and playing with the ideas, but you haven't quite figured out what or how you're going to build them. You can just save them as drafts and come back to them, especially with blog posts. If you've got a blog post idea, you could just write the title down, save it as a draft. It will be there in the back end, but it's not visible on the front end. So that is drafts and live. So lastly, we've got this menu here. Note that I added 4 blocks earlier, denoted by this blue color. That's the separation. Again, I will explain in detail the blocks at a later video, but for now, this menu item here opens like a hierarchy of what's currently active on the page, and it helps you get a clear overview of where you are, and you can also click on them to take you to that relevant point. So imagine you had 15 blocks on this page. It was a long page with lots of information. You would be able to use this hierarchy system to locate and figure out where you want to be. It's very useful. Just click it on and off. This gives your posts, it gives you information about how much information there is on that page, like how many headings, how many words, how many paragraphs. This can be quite useful for SEO, because SEO recommend that you have a certain number of titles and a certain number of paragraphs and a certain length to your blog posts. So this is just for information. You may not find that very useful. These are your undo and redo buttons. This edit button you're not going to need. And then lastly, this big plus button adds your blocks. So I will come to that big plus button at another point. So that is essentially the overview of pages. You can click add new here for a new page. And I will do blocks in another video. So that's the end of that one.